Australia. Sun, beaches, the most unique wildlife on Earth. But this continent hides a darker side, because some of the most unsettling parasites on the planet call Australia home. And some of them might already be closer to you than you think. These are the top 10 most dangerous parasites in Australia. From annoying to deadly, from unsettling to almost unbelievable. Stay with me, because number 1 is something most Australians have never even heard of. Number 10, the paralysis tick. Let's start with something that sounds harmless. It isn't. The paralysis tick lives in the bushland along Australia's east coast. It waits on leaves and grass, patient, still. When a warm body passes, it latches on, and then it feeds, for days, without you noticing. But this tick does something most don't. It injects a toxin, a neurotoxin that slowly shuts down the nervous system. At first, weakness in the legs, then the arms, then breathing becomes difficult. In children and small animals, it can be fatal. Every year, hundreds of dogs and cats die from a single tick bite, and humans are not immune. The bush is beautiful, but check yourself when you get home. Number 9, Giardia. This one is invisible, and it loves Australian waterways. Giardia is a microscopic, single-celled parasite. It lives in contaminated water, rivers, lakes, even remote streams that look crystal clear. Hikers drink from a mountain creek. Looks perfect, tastes fresh. 2 weeks later, severe cramps, explosive diarrhea, nausea that won't stop. That's Giardia. And it can linger in the gut for months. In Australia, it is one of the most commonly reported intestinal parasites. Travelers, campers, and bushwalkers are especially at risk. The water looks clean. It isn't always. Number 8, Toxoplasma. This parasite has a trick that should make everyone uncomfortable. Toxoplasma gondii is carried by cats, shed in their feces. It gets into soil, into unwashed vegetables, into undercooked meat. Most people who get infected feel nothing. No symptoms, no warning. But the parasite doesn't just sit quietly in the body. It forms cysts in muscle, in the heart, and in the brain. Scientists have found that infected individuals show subtle changes in behavior. Slower reaction times, slightly altered risk perception. Some studies suggest links to anxiety and schizophrenia. The parasite may literally be influencing how you think. And in Australia, estimates suggest up to a third of the population carries it. Right now, without knowing. Number 7, the dog tapeworm. This one comes from man's best friend. Echinococcus granulosus is a tiny tapeworm that lives in dogs and other canines. The eggs pass out in feces. They contaminate soil, grass, water. When a human accidentally ingests the eggs, and it is easier than you think, the larvae don't stay in the intestine. They travel to the liver, to the lungs, sometimes to the brain. There they form cysts, slowly growing over years, sometimes decades. The person feels nothing until the cyst is large enough to press on an organ. Then, pain, organ dysfunction, internal rupture. A ruptured cyst can send larvae flooding through the body and trigger fatal shock. In rural and outback Australia, this is a genuine and underreported threat. The eggs are invisible. The timeline is long. The consequences are severe. Number 6, Cryptosporidium. Here is a parasite that has managed to defeat one of our greatest defenses. Cryptosporidium is resistant to chlorine. Standard water treatment doesn't kill it. It spreads through contaminated water and causes violent gastroenteritis, severe diarrhea, vomiting, dehydration. For healthy adults, it usually passes in a week or two. But for the immunocompromised, the elderly, young children, cancer patients, it can be life-threatening. Australia has had multiple documented outbreaks tied to public water supplies and swimming pools. You can do everything right, filter your water, follow the rules, and still end up infected. Number 5. Baileys ascaris. Most people have never heard this name. That is exactly the problem. Baileys ascaris procyonis is a round worm carried by raccoons. But raccoons aren't native to Australia. So what's it doing on this list? Because Australia has its own version of this nightmare scenario. Similar larval migrans caused by animal roundworms have been documented in Australia, with cases linked to contact with native animal feces in rural areas. Here is what makes it so frightening. The larvae don't stay in the gut. They migrate through tissue, through organs, into the spinal cord, into the brain. They cause something called neural larva migrans, inflammation of the brain, seizures, blindness, coma. There is no reliable treatment once the larvae are in the nervous system. This is the parasite that makes specialists go quiet. Number 4. Strongyloids. This worm has a trick no other parasite on this list can match. Strongyloids stercoralis can reproduce inside the human body without needing to go back into the environment. Without needing another host, it just keeps going. Most people infected in Australia, particularly Indigenous Australians in remote communities, where rates are among the highest in the developed world, carry it for years without symptoms. But when the immune system weakens from illness, stress, medication, the worm seizes its opportunity. It multiplies explosively. Larvae burst through the intestinal wall in massive numbers. They carry gut bacteria with them directly into the bloodstream. The result? Sepsis, meningitis, multi-organ failure. A parasite that was silent for decades suddenly becomes lethal. It doesn't need a second chance. It was already inside. Number 3. Angiostrongylus. This parasite arrives in Australia on a slow and slimy carrier. The rat lungworm, Angiostrongylus cantonensis, lives in rats. Its larvae are shed in rat feces. Slugs and snails eat the feces. The larvae live inside them. And if a human eats an infected slug or snail, even accidentally, on unwashed lettuce, on a piece of fruit, hidden in a salad, the larvae travel to the brain. There they cause eosinophilic meningitis, inflammation of the brain and spinal cord, severe headaches, neck stiffness, neurological damage, in some cases, paralysis, death. In Australia, cases have been reported in Queensland and New South Wales. Children have been infected after touching or accidentally swallowing garden slugs. One small slug on one unwashed leaf. That is all it takes. Number 2. Trypanosoma. Most people associate sleeping sickness with Africa, but Australia has its own related threat. Australian trypanosomes, parasitic protozoa transmitted by native insects, have been found in Australian wildlife for decades, and recent research has raised serious concerns about spillover into humans. Cases of trypanosoma infections in Australians have been documented, linked to biting insects in rural and outback regions. The parasite invades the bloodstream, then tissues, then potentially the nervous system. Symptoms can mimic other illnesses for months: fatigue, fever, neurological changes. Diagnosis is rare because most doctors don't think to look for it. The research is new, the awareness is low, and the insects carrying it are everywhere in rural Australia. Number 1. The filarial worm, Dirofilaria and meningeal worm. And here we arrive at the parasite that specialists find most disturbing. Filarial worms including Tirofilaria, are transmitted by mosquitoes. Yes, mosquitoes. The insect every Australian lives alongside. Normally, these worms infect animals, dogs, native wildlife. But in what scientists call accidental human infection, the larvae enter the human body and don't know where to go. So they wander under the skin, through muscle, toward the eye. Cases have been documented in Australia of worms removed from beneath the conjunctiva of the eye. A living worm, moving inside the eyeball, and in the most severe cases involving related species. The larvae migrate into the spinal cord and brain, causing inflammation, neurological damage, paralysis. There is no specific approved treatment for larval migration in humans. Doctors can only manage the symptoms and hope the worm dies before causing permanent damage. Australia has some of the highest mosquito diversity in the world. Climate change is expanding their range further south every year. The mosquito lands. You barely feel it, and something invisible begins its journey through your body. Parasites don't announce themselves. They don't need to. They are patient, precise, and they have been perfecting their craft for millions of years. Australia is one of the most naturally extraordinary places on Earth. But the bush, the water, the soil, they are shored spaces, shared with things that see your body not as a person, but as a home. And here is the question that stays with me. Which of these parasites exist in your region right now? In the water, in the soil, in the insects outside your window? Without a single person knowing, write it in the comments. And if you think Australia was extreme, wait until you see what we found on the next continent.